Well, good evening, or whatever time it is where you are watching this Take the Lead virtual happy hour. Welcome. We're so happy to have you, and I'm so excited to get a chance to talk with our very special guest this evening, Nely Galán, the inimitable Nely Galán. I'm Gloria Feldt. I'm co-founder and president of Take the Lead, and I want to welcome you all here with a big hug and welcome, and we're delighted to see you. Nely is going to talk with us about entrepreneurship. She's written a fabulous new book. I have to show you, look at all the post-its I have in it. I have truly read every word in this book, and you will want to too. I guarantee you it is fantastic. The book is called Self-Made, Becoming Empowered, Self-Reliant, Rich in every way. And isn't that just what we all want? So Nely is also the founder of the Adelante movement. So we're going to learn all about that and all about her. And just thrilled to have you here, Nely. And I'm going to come back to you in just a moment after I tell people that Take the Lead's mission is to prepare, develop, inspire, and propel women to take their fair and equal share of leadership positions across every sector by 2025. I encourage you to hop over to our website, taketheleadwomen.com, and check out all the free offerings we have, like this virtual happy hour. We're so happy that you're here. Check out our newsletter, subscribe to it if you're not already a subscriber, and check out all the training programs that we also can offer to you or your company or your organization. We are there for you, and we're especially excited to tell you, and I'll tell you more about it as we go on, about our new partnership with Glassbreakers. If you're one of our regulars, you've probably already gotten emails from us on this, but if you're new to us, I want to make sure that you know you can go to our website, and if you are interested in getting fabulous free peer mentoring, get a mentor or be a mentor. Either way, we need both of those. Here's your opportunity, because our partnership with Glassbreakers has begun and it's up and running, and would be delighted to have you join us and get a mentor or be a mentor, help other women. That's the name of the game. The other thing that I want to remind you is that everybody who signed up for this virtual happy hour in advance is automatically entered in a giveaway for a prize that is absolutely priceless. Yeah, it's me. I get to do an hour-long mentoring session with you, with the lucky winner of this month's virtual happy hour. So I've really enjoyed doing that. Each month I get to talk to one of our listeners, and I get to know a little about you and answer any questions that you have for me, and it's just been really fun, and I've met some fabulous people that way, so it's exciting. So we'll stay tuned to the end, because you'll hear who our winner is this month. The virtual happy hour, as you know, is the second Wednesday of every month at 6:30 Eastern Time. We figure it's always happy hour somewhere, so you know, that's fine. Also, please remember to send your questions in. You just under the screen on your computer where you're watching us, there's a chat box, and you just click on the pencil icon, put in your name and your location, and then you can type in your question. You can also tweet your questions to us at Take Lead Women. Now, in full disclosure today, because Nely had a last-minute scheduling problem, we're pre-recording today, but she is so fabulous. She has agreed that if you still have questions, you can go ahead and type them in or tweet them to us, and we will get them to her, and she will answer them personally. So we have lots of questions that have already come in. Obviously, Nely, this is a topic people are very, very interested in and passionate about. Okay, so I think the only other thing I'm supposed to tell people before we get started is to follow us all on social media. You can tweet Nely_Galán, G-A-L-A-N, on Twitter, and Take the Lead is at Take Lead Women. I'm at Gloria Feldt, and Nely can also be found at Adelante Power. I love that, power, because that's our favorite word here at Take the Lead. So stay connected with us all on Twitter, on Facebook, on Instagram, on LinkedIn. We're all everywhere, and we want to stay in touch with you, and we want to know what you think. So on with the show. Nely, has been called by the New York Times Magazine the tropical tycoon, and I can't wait to hear what that's all about. She is the former president of Telemundo. She's an Emmy award-winning producer. She started 10 TV channels in Latin America. And she's an entrepreneur. And I'm not sure that I love this because I don't have a whole lot of bad habits, but one of them is I really love shoes. And Nely tells us instead of buying shoes, we should be buying buildings. So, yeah, I can't follow all the advice, but most of it. Her book, Self-Made, has become a New York Times bestseller, and it's for good reason. It's really fabulous. She's also, you may recognize her from Celebrity Apprentice. I want to hear about that too, Nely. And so I say, let's adelante. How about that?
Adelante.
Adelante. Nely, why don't you start by telling us, how did you get to be you? What's your story? What was your path to where you are today? And why are you so passionate about what you are doing now?
Well, I think one of the things that I talk about in the book, I say, in your pain is your brand. And I think for so many of us, we start from a place of bad things happen. For me, I'm an immigrant. I came to this country when I was 5. My parents lost everything. We came from Cuba. There was a communist regime takeover, and we had to start all over again. And so those of us that are listening, that are immigrants, understand what that means. It means you become the translator, you become the adult from the time you're very little. You really don't have a childhood. But the good things that come from that are an incredible work ethic, a feeling of gratitude of being in this country because you've been somewhere else before that's worse. You also understand that this country is an incredible opportunity that must be taken, and that, if your parents brought you here, you need to be grateful and take advantage of being an American citizen. It makes you patriotic, and it also makes you hustle. You know that nothing is just handed to you or given to you. And so from a very early age, I felt like I was part of a team, and I was the team leader, and I had to help the team out. And I think that's a very different point of view than so many kids today that, have been taken care of. So in a way, my pain brought me great skills and great gifts that have brought me to this day today.
And what made you so passionate about entrepreneurship for women? What's the basis of that?
I did start out being passionate about it, but, it started out, I think, when I was in junior high, and my parents sent me to all-girl Catholic school, and they were, poor things. I was like a good student, and they wanted to send me to a nice school, and we were struggling financially, and one of my neighbors sold Avon, and she said, honey, why don't you sell some Avon in school, and we'll give you some free lipstick? And I thought, forget the free lipstick, I need cash. And so I had heard on TV, let's cut a 50-50 deal. I didn't even know what I was talking about. And I said to her, let's make it a 50-50.
You said that. How old were you?
I was like 13 years old, 12 or 13.
Oh my goodness. And you need to say, oh my goodness.
And I started, I cut the deal with her, and I started selling Avon in school, and I was making $200 a week cash. And so I was able to pay down my school. And that was like my first entrepreneurial experience. And then I've had many, many, many more. And I think the one that really changed my life is I was running a little rinky-dinky TV station in New Jersey, much like what we would say like a college radio station or something, very small. And one day, after 3 years of working 24 hours a day, I walk into work, and the lawyer for the company came in and said, we just sold the company for a lot of money. And I went to see my boss in New York City, and I said, how could you do this to me? How could you have this company for sale? This is my baby. And he goes, young lady, those are my chips. If you want to play, go get your own chips. Start your own business. And I thought, why would he say that to me? But he changed my life, because in my anger, I thought, I will never work for anyone again. Mm-hmm. Gloria, I didn't know what I was doing, but at 25 years of age, I started a business. And that's why one of the reasons I had to write the book, you read it in the book, for 4 years I didn't make a penny. I took all kinds of odd jobs, and I wish I would have known what I say in the book, which is, we can't do this alone. Join organizations. Go get mentors. Learn before you do it. While you're in your job, start a side hustle and learn how to be an entrepreneur before you leap. I leapt. And when I leapt, it took me 4 years of making no money, and my mother and father were like, por favor, go find a husband, you're going to lose your looks. My friends were like, girl, why don't you just get a job? And I hung in there because my boss, one of the few times I would hang out with him, he said to me, when I was your age, I started a business, and for 10 years I made no money, and then I became a millionaire. And I thought, well, I'm only on year 4. But in the 4th year, I started getting help, and I realized what I was trying to do was flawed. And when I fixed the flaw in what I was trying to do, my first piece of business came in. And from there, it kept going. So I know from where I speak, I did this myself. From Avon to working for other people to starting my own business, and I've gone on and on ever since.
Well, speaking as somebody who never knew how to do what she was doing in any job until she took the job and then learned how to do it, I empathize with you, but I also think that that's often the best way. It's often the best way to learn if you have the courage and the persistence to stay with it. You say a lot about the importance of financial freedom for women. Yes. Talk about that, would you?
Well, I think we talk a lot about empowerment. Like, empowerment is kind of an overused word, and we talk about how to become empowered. And I guess for me, it's very cold. Like, I go, how could you really be empowered if you don't have your own money and you're not free? And what I mean by that is, if you have to stay in a relationship, for instance, because you depend on someone financially, or if you have to put up with a boss that's abusive because you have no savings, or if you can't afford to have a catastrophe happen because you're one paycheck away from catastrophe, you're not empowered. To me, it's like if this is a race, if life is a race, the starting point is financial self-reliance and financial, the desire to be self-sufficient. Doesn't mean you're there yet, but that's the starting point. And I don't want to say to women that I think money it's neither the root of all, unhappiness and evil, like I was raised to think as a Latina, and it's also not what makes you happy. But financial freedom brings you freedom and options and choices, and that does make you happy.
Absolutely, absolutely. I often say, if a woman has the ability to take care of herself financially, she never has to stay in an abusive relationship. She cannot be coerced to do anything that isn't really in her own best interest. So I couldn't agree with you more. It's one of the powers that has always been essential, but women haven't always had access to it. Today,
women understand their power. Their power is beautiful women, for instance, and yet beauty is a power, but it's a power that goes away, guaranteed to go away. And money and having money grow is a power that only grows.
Right.
And I want women to think about that, because I think that this type of empowerment is the new beauty.
And it is what we call at Take the Lead the power too. It's not money for the sake of money. It's money because if you have it, you can make life better for yourself, your family, and the world. That's how I see it anyway. And I think once women can think of it in that way, it's much less threatening to think about, oh yes, I want that, right? I want that kind of power. So we have so many questions. I want to go ahead and start going to questions from people who are just dying to know your opinion on some things. So Irina from California says, what is the best way to pivot in one's career? And I imagine she's talking about from moving out of a job into an entrepreneurial position that you're talking about.
Well, I think pivoting is a great word, and it's happened. I mean, I've pivoted many times in my life. I think it means multiple things for multiple people, right? It's really looking inward and saying, why is whatever I'm doing not working? Whether it's a job or even sometimes when you're an entrepreneur, you have to pivot because what you're doing as an entrepreneur isn't quite right. And that's an intuitive thing. and sometimes it's a very concrete thing. Like you started a business and it's not making money, or you're working for a corporation and you know you're about to be laid off, so you have to pivot, right? I think it is kind of cultivating, for me, it's cultivating this flexibility and this idea that nothing is forever. And this idea that I say in the book that there is no Prince Charming, right? And what I mean by that is no mate, no boss, no corporation, no government is going to save you. And if you don't believe me, just keep living life, and sooner or later you'll realize it's true, right, Gloria?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely, and it's great advice, and sometimes it's hard advice to take, but we learn. We live and we learn. Here's another question from Kalima in New York. What's the best piece of advice you would give an entrepreneur?
I think the best piece of advice I could give an entrepreneur is to complete, you begin. So many people start things and don't finish them. So, I started my business and for 4 years I didn't make money, but I didn't give up. And I think that even in completing and realizing that what you did doesn't work, it's a completion. I think we have to start and finish things that are smaller first and learn to cultivate this idea of the importance of completion. And I think for an entrepreneur, it's invaluable.
Mm-hmm. Caring enough to make it happen. That's a big deal. It's a big deal. So Michael in Arizona asks, on your rise to be a top media mogul, how did you balance family, personal, and professional goals?
Honestly, for many years, I didn't balance anything, and my personal life really fell through the cracks. And I made every mistake in the book as a woman and as someone with no balance. But I worked 24 hours a day. I had many jobs. I did many projects. And luckily, you also realize that in the years of your life where you have a lot of life force, it's also important to use your life force to the max. Mm-hmm. Now, had I not made money and saved that money and taken those savings and invested it, if I had squandered that money, then it would not have been good. But I really took that time that I was really like a workaholic, and I used my time really well, so that by the time I was in my 40s, I really didn't have to work anymore, and then I found balance. Yeah. So, you can, I also say there's plenty of time in life later to run a nonprofit, to not work, to go to exercise. There's only so many years that you have this incredible energy that if you work 24 hours a day, you can wake up the next day and go to work. And you do have to use that time wisely, because you have these certain years of your life where you make the most. It is true. So I have a lot of balance right now, but I didn't many years ago.
So you've worked for a lot of interesting people. You've worked with millionaires and billionaires, and everybody from Donald Trump to Norman Lear. You can't get much broader than that on the political spectrum, that's for sure. What did you learn from working with people like that?
Well, great question. First of all, I think that I should explain how I worked with all these people, because what happened is I started a business in the Latino TV market first. Mm-hmm. And I was like the lady that makes pink couches. Like, everybody was like, what's this Latino market? I was in an emerging business, mm-hmm. in a growth industry, and I was an expert at something that all these billionaires wanted to dabble in. So I didn't go to work for them as an employee. They were my clients. And so it was a different balance of power, if you will, because even though they were much richer than I was an expert at something that they needed. But what I did learn a lot from them, I have to say. I think almost everything I know, I learned from them. And what I learned is that people are not necessarily smarter than you, but people are braver than you, or people have more chutzpah than you. They take a risk, right? And I think that one of the things I really think is important to say is that in order to be very successful, you have to make fear and failure your best friends. Fear, what I realized from knowing these billionaires is It's not concrete. It's not a table. It's not a chair. It's like a cloud, like you're in an airplane going through a cloud, and it dissipates. It's just something that shows up that shows you what you must do. So when fear shows up, these guys or these women that are billionaires go, big deal. I'm going to try it anyway. What's the worst thing that can happen? I fail.
Right.
The relationship with failure has to be no big deal. My failure resume is 10 times longer than the 2 or 3 successes that everybody remembers me for. If you're not failing, you will never succeed. You have to get back on the horse, back on the horse, back on the horse, and just brush it off. And you can't associate failure with shame. Great people that have done extraordinary things fail all the time.
Powerful, powerful message. Very powerful message. Thank you for that. I think that's something that particularly for women it's important to hear because we do tend to be more risk averse than men, not because that's inherent, but because of social conditioning. And so we need a little more of that kind of coaching and encouragement to take that leap, to think bigger, to have bigger intentions, and that's so important that you're doing that.
But you know what, Gloria? It's very important to say, too, that within taking big risks, you can't be a know-it-all. You have to know that you know nothing. Mm-hmm. So you've got to find a team of people to help you, and that means joining chambers of commerce. Like right under your nose, everybody has a chamber of commerce in their town. Mm-hmm. They have all the information. Joining entrepreneurial organizations, going and meeting your banker, going and meeting a mortgage broker, getting the information that you need because you can't think that alone you're going to figure all this out. So take risks, but get help at the same time.
How do you figure out who to get the help from? That might be something that would help people to know. I mean, how did you know to go to a banker? How did you know to find a lawyer, or what lawyer to find, or what all of that?
I was working in Hollywood making TV shows, and I realized that the TV shows, that in order to go to the next level, the TV shows, you have to almost bank the TV show, that you don't get paid till after the show's done. And so you need money. And so one of the guys that I used to work for that was already a TV producer said, you need to find a banker. You need to get a line of credit. I go, what is that? And he said to me, there is a woman in Hollywood that's a Latina banker that is a banker for a lot of famous people. Maybe I should introduce you. And I went to meet her, and I go, I didn't know I was supposed to find someone like you. And so she taught me everything about banking. So, again, if you don't tell somebody you're vulnerable and you don't know what you're doing, how are they supposed to give you advice and help you or guide you to somebody? And that's how it begins. I mean, as I've gotten older and more sophisticated, I know to join organizations that will help me find the right people. I know to vet multiple people before I choose anyone to do anything. I just don't do anything anymore without asking for a lot of help, creating RFPs, putting out contracts, having different people bid for work. But when I started out, like so many of us, and particularly so many women, we try to bootstrap everything ourselves and figure it out ourselves. Well, of course we're going to fail.
Did you have mentors along the way? Are there any particular people that you can mention or just even, give an idea of the kind of people that they were who mentored you?
I mean, I did have mentors, but I have to tell you something because I think it's very important for women. I think that my initial mentors were people that I was either sharing an office with, or people that I, would meet, or people that I read about, and I couldn't ask them to be my mentor. So I became an expert in those people. Like, I read everything about them. I would, ask people that worked with them, and I pretended to be them. I would say, I'm going to act as if I'm so-and-so. Meaning, if I was going to walk into a bank as an immigrant woman and ask a bank to loan me $5 million in a line of credit, I couldn't do it. But if I pretended to be one of these billionaires and I would say, what would Rupert Murdoch do in this moment? he'd feel like he was doing the bank a favor. Well, I need $5 million. My business plan is great. And I started to act as if I'm these people, and it would work. And I realized, what's the difference between their voice and my voice? And I realized they choose themselves every day.
Say that.
They choose themselves.
They choose themselves.
Yeah, they walk into every meeting like, I'm the greatest thing in the world, and you're so lucky to work with me. In their mind, that's what they think. And I walk in like, oh my God, please, can you discover me? Can you realize that I'm really great? And that doesn't work because people can smell that. So I tell women and I tell entrepreneurs, you have to choose yourself every day. Like when I meet women and they tell me, I go, well, what is it that you do? And she's like, well, I'm a good cook. So are you a cook or are you a chef? I'm not going to loan money to a cook. I'm going to loan money to a chef who's going to grow up to be famous and be on the Food Network. That's a big difference. If I meet a woman and says, I'm a cleaning lady, I clean houses. Well, how many houses do you clean? 15. So you mean you're a janitorial service. You're an entrepreneur. Well, maybe I'll hire a janitorial service. It's like if we don't choose ourselves, declare ourselves. And by the way, men do this better than women.
Absolutely.
I don't know one man that doesn't over-exaggerate what they do before they do it.
Yep. I mean that's borne out by the data. It's not just our our observations as individuals. That's really borne out by the data, and it's true. And again, it's not inherent. It is culturally learned for a whole lot of reasons. But that's why your lessons are so important for women to hear.
It's important. Now I will say this: one of my early mentors was a woman. I was working at 17 magazine and I was writing articles. And one day she called me and she said, I'm Aida Barrera and I'm a TV producer and I would like to interview. I like your articles and I want to interview you to be a researcher on a TV show. And I heard her name and I thought, is she Latina? Is she Italian? What's that name? And when I went to interview with her, it was clear to me she was Latina. And I thought, I've never seen a Latina that's a TV producer, and she made me think like, wow, that's a possibility, right? So sometimes it is also important to see someone that looks like you and to see that it's possible. And for me, that was the importance of writing this book, that I wanted women from traditional cultures, women that are multi-ethnic, to see a woman on a cover of a book that is forwarded by Susie Orman, to see that if a woman that looks like them can speak about money, can speak about empowerment, can speak about entrepreneurship, that they can do it too. Because I come from nothing. As I already said, my family are immigrants and I'm an immigrant. So I'm not J-Lo, I'm not Beyonce, and I'm not an athlete. If I can do it from coming from an ordinary place and become a New York Times bestseller, writing about money and empowerment and entrepreneurship, they can do it too.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, and if I may jump from speaking about mentoring, and you both had mentors, and obviously you did choose yourself. You do mentor yourself, and that's a very important lesson to remind people that about Glass Breakers Take the Lead, where you can get a mentor or you can be a mentor. And just hop on over to taketheleadwomen.com and click on mentor, and this may be your moment to find exactly the person with whom you can share aspirations and who may be the person who can really help you along. So please do that. You will not be sorry. Question from Carrie from Canada. What do you count as the most important factor in your ascension to having been the president of Telemundo?
Well, I think that it's a combination of a lot of things. I think number one, that I started in an emerging field early. I was first to market in the Latino market. Nobody was talking about Latinos or Latino TV. And why did I do that? Because I was this kid of immigrants, and I knew that I could tell those stories better than anybody. So again, it's using your pain to make profit. Using your pain that you're an expert in to solve a problem that exists in the world. And at the time, that I started making TV shows for Latinos, initially for Latinos and then for all people and for women, I felt like there was nobody making TV for me. And as a Latina in America, I wasn't seeing anybody that looked like me on TV. So that was my goal. And my goal, it turns out, was a lot of other people wanted that as well. It was their pain as well. So it started making me money. And ultimately, by the time Telemundo became a network, I was the most prepared person. I was like a little bit like Hillary Clinton. I had done every job, and I was ready to take on the role.
Great analogy.
By the way, I didn't get the job so easily either. I was up for the job, and then they were like, well, you're very prepared, but you're an entrepreneur, and this is a job for a corporate woman. And so I went and spent $70,000 of my own money. I say this in the book, and I made a tape of what I thought the network should look like. Wouldn't you hire somebody that did that?
Yes.
They gave me the job. And later on, I was able to run that network for a number of years. We sold it to NBC, and when NBC bought it, they gave me a deal to produce 500 episodes of TV,
Wow.
which they did.
Wow, wow, that's amazing. You're giving me chills. This is such a wonderful story. So Jacqueline in Virginia wants to know, what is your experience with conflict resolution, specifically in the workplace? But I think there's another part of the question, which is, what tips do you have if conflict in your work that you're doing involves women?
This is a great question, and I'm so glad she asked this question. I never get asked this question, and I think it's very important. When I was young, I was very passive aggressive. Like, if something bothered me, I wouldn't talk about it. I would build up resentments. And I have learned, again, by modeling the behavior more of women than of men. I think men are much more passive aggressive. Some bosses that I had who were really direct. And I realized that sometimes people that are direct and tell you the truth are not the most likable people. But it's better to be respected and be clear and not let people dangle than, kind of not say the truth. And so I would say that's one of my greatest skills. I think I am really good at conflict resolution. I think that I nip things in the bud immediately. I am pretty, I deal with conflict every day. I constantly have to tell people, this doesn't work, that doesn't work. I constantly have to call people out. I call myself out. I'm very good at taking responsibility when I make a mistake. And I think it's very important for women. Otherwise, I really believe that that's when disease goes into your body. When you don't deal with things that are bothering you, they need to be cleaned out. My husband sometimes says to me, I'm Cuban and I'm very loud. And he goes, are you yelling? And I go, no, this is the way I talk. But I talk like this because I get it out and I don't hold resentments because I get things out. I think that's very important.
So honesty, directness, not letting something simmer, not letting something fester. It's really hard for people to do that, I think, especially in a work situation. So
I recommend to women, I did go back to school and I have a psychology degree, but I recommend going to therapy. I tell women all the time, there's so much free therapy available in the world, and I don't, like if I had to do my life over again, I would have started going to therapy at 15. I think there's a lot of things that happen to us. Life is full of happenings that stay in our body, that we don't clean out, that we don't heal from. And I think that the more you talk to a person that isn't your best friend, somebody that you don't have boundary issues with, and maybe for some people it's not a therapist, maybe it's a life coach, maybe it's a religious person, but it's very important to let things out of your body and practice not being passive aggressive with someone that is neutral.
Mm-hmm. Right. Absolutely. Okay, well, Melissa in New York wants to know, this is a big issue for women. Affordable childcare is a big problem that I see facing families and affecting women in particular. What do you think are the solutions for that?
That's a great question. I mean, I think I can answer you from an entrepreneurial place first, which is one of the reasons I believe, women can't have it all at the same time, but the closest you're ever going to come is by becoming self-made and becoming an entrepreneur. Because if you work for yourself, you can create a situation. So I'll tell you what I did, and this is many years into my business, but I bought the house next door to mine. And my office is next door to my house. And I could never have done that if I still worked in a corporation. I mean, for many of us, you can start a business out of your closet, out of your bedroom, out of your garage, and you can be home when your kids get home. And you can work later after the kids go to sleep. So I'm a big proponent that entrepreneurship is an incredible way for women to have as much of having it all as possible. But again, I also tell you, don't leave your job right away and incubate a business, start a side hustle while you're in your job. But for those of you that have that, I think it's also, I'll tell you, in the Latino community, we have found great solutions for childcare. What we do is we find some relative in the family that's more of a housewife type, and we help that woman that we trust create a child care business where they take care of all the kids in the family's kids. Mm-hmm. And so I think that that's a solution that Latinas have found. That's something that other women should look at. Who in your family doesn't really like to go to work and is really good with the kids, and you can help her by giving her the business and getting her other business to create a child care business.
Cool solution. I thought you were going to answer, we call her grandmother.
Well, that's true. But we really look at who in the family is, we don't think everybody has to be grandiose. If someone in our family is a great plumber, everyone in the family gives that plumber business. If we have someone in the family that's really a good cook, we say, okay, can you cook for all of us because we don't have time, and we'll pick up the food on the way home and we'll pay you. We really do create businesses within our own community.
So you've had the sharing economy since long before it became a popular thing. How cool is that? Yes. How cool is that? I mean, I truly believe that if women had designed the organizations, the institutions of work, that all of these problems would have been solved a long time ago, because it's not like having families and having babies is anything new in this world, right?
I think particularly a good role model for women are women from these traditional cultures. Muslim women, Indian women, Latina women who live in cooperative communities, right, where we've learned this from the time we're very little. Mm-hmm. And I think we really realize we almost kind of self-select who is the one that's going to go to the company and work, who's the one that's going to be the doctor, who's the one that's going to take care of the children, who's the best cook that's going to create a catering business for the rest of us. And I think there's something to be said in that.
Absolutely. You tell so many inspiring stories of women in the book. And one of the ones that really stood out for me is Alex Reyes, who she knew she wanted to do hair from the time she was 12 years old. And so she went to beauty school to learn to do hair. And she ended up creating her own, opening her own shop. And that's how she supported herself and her child. And then later on, she saw a need that she solved for people by designing or creating a compression hose, right? That looked good, which most of them do not. So I mean, there are so many inspiring stories like that in your book, and I think the point of that is similar to what you've been saying, and it's important for people to hear it, which is that you don't have to necessarily start a huge enterprise to become self-made, right?
I also because I think that, like Alex, the other thing is that as we grow, we have different tastes, different interests, different hobbies, different skills. I didn't like math when I was very young, and then I've since then taken classes, and I love accounting. Go figure. So I think you also have to realize that as a human being, you're going to evolve and change, and what you want to do changes. You know, I've met so many women lately that I'm going on the Lyft, you know, Ubers and Lyfts, and I meet so many women, and they say, I'm a school teacher, and I'm driving a Lyft for the summer so I can start my own business. You know, I'm a mom, I'm a stay-at-home mom, and my husband, I feed the kids, then my husband stays home with the kids, does homework, and I drive an Uber at night. So I think the shared economy thing has changed the game for all of us. Like, we do get to explore things that we're just good at, skills that we have, and then things that we love over time and things that we love change over time.
Right. Now, I do want to say that I don't think there's anything wrong with women aspiring to start a large enterprise of some kind, and that part of that that bringing about equality that you talk about is only going to happen when at least some women start businesses that create so much wealth and change how people live, like, you know, like a Zuckerberg or a Gates, or, you know, these big tech companies or big media companies that literally change how we live. When do you think we'll see women entrepreneurs who create businesses at that level?
Well, I think, first of all, I think there is a gap in our information, because I think we have the perception that the only way you can be a Bill Gates is by creating a company, inventing something. And frankly, that's the hardest way to be an entrepreneur. And it requires a certain type of person with a big ego, with this kind of staying power that not everybody has. One of the things I love that I try to say in the book is there are many ways to be that kind of person. For instance, if I had to do my life over again, I would have bought franchises. Why do I have to invent something from scratch when someone else has figured it out and I just have to follow the lead and color by numbers, do the same thing? I've met women of color that own 15, 20 McDonald's that are, you know, pretty wealthy. I have met people that buy existing businesses from a neighbor that retires that now have big businesses. I think we think that everything has to be done linearly, like you start low and you go up and you go, and that's a certain type of person, which most of us are not that person. There are ways to skip a lot of steps by paying attention to what's under your nose. There are government contracts. There are supplier diversity programs at corporations where they outsource so much business to entrepreneurs. Like, when I started my business and I started these channels in Latin America, it was these huge studios like Fox, HBO, that wanted to outsource that business to someone, and I took it. I didn't have to start from scratch with no backing. So there are opportunities out there that we don't even know exist. So I think one of the big things I say in the book, and that I think is the most important chapter in the book, is there is hidden money in America for all of us. And we have to go get it. We don't have to work just hard. We have to work smart. We don't have to climb a mountain like Mount Kilimanjaro every single time. There are easier ways to become Bill Gates.
Well, I'm going to suggest that everybody read your book and find out where those hidden sources of money are, because we all want to know that. That is for sure. So, Layla, I still have so many questions here that have come in from people. You have no idea. People are so interested in this. Layla wants to know, what do you do when you don't feel that what do you do when you don't feel that your significant other's finances are in good condition, but she continues to spend money on entertainment instead of paying down the debt? Well, there's a question.
That's a great question. First of all, I am of the school. Again, it's all about financial self-reliance. Why are you mingling your money with your mate? I wouldn't do that. I don't mingle my money with my mate. I love my husband dearly. I don't think he handles his money the way I do. It's none of my business. And as long as he's not affecting me with the way he handles his money, then, you know, I lead by example. I have made him a better person with money because I'm so impeccable with money. But I don't feel that he's here to save me, or I'm not waiting for him to give me money, and I'm certainly not going to give him money. Mm-hmm. So certain things that we do together, we share in the cost, and sometimes I treat and I take him on a trip, Sometimes he treats me, but whatever his financial situation is his, not mine.
Very good advice, I will have to say. Very good advice. Okay, Marquetta. At the age of 64, I'm focused on encouraging younger women. It's frustrating to feel like a failure, but I want the world to be fairer for the next generation. I feel like a fraud. Any suggestions?
Well, I'll tell you something. I understand that because I think as we get older, we want to create a legacy. We want to leave something behind. I think it's really like, just like when you're in a younger age, you have a ticking clock. Later in life, you have a different kind of ticking clock to give back. And so for me, when I had made enough money that I didn't have to work for a living anymore, the first thing I did is I went back to school and finished school because that's what I wanted. And when I was in school, I realized that I really had something to give, and that I wanted to begin with Latinas because that's my community. And I felt like I didn't see anyone doing that kind of work, inspiring Latinas around entrepreneurship. And so I started something called the Adelante movement, which we heard Gloria say so beautifully. Adelante, which means come on, let's move it. And so I went around the country for 4 years teaching Latinas about entrepreneurship and bringing other speakers and other stories. And along the way, other women started showing up. And I realized that we were in the midst of a full-blown women's movement around financial self-reliance and entrepreneurship. So what I would say to you is pick something that you feel that uniquely you can teach and start teaching one person, or blog about it or write about it, and see the response you get, because I guarantee you it's going to change your life.
And I think for anybody who feels like a fraud or has that imposter syndrome, as it's sometimes called, taking action, doing something, just as you've described, is one of the best ways to get over it because it's self-reinforcing. One of my mentors used to say the fastest way to self-esteem is to stand up for what you believe. And when you choose to do something for someone else, you're standing up for what you believe and you're helping someone else. And so I think, Marquetta, that you can do this. I know you can, and everyone will appreciate it. So Karina in Texas wants to know some resources where she can research how much she should charge for consulting. I probably need to know that too.
Okay, so that one's really easy. I think, again, I'm gonna say that the best resource in America that's underutilized is the Chamber of Commerce. So in your town, there is a Chamber of Commerce. And the reason I say you have to go to your local Chamber of Commerce is because there's not one fee for consultants all over the country, right? Different markets, different cities demand different prices, right? So you have to do your homework and find out what are people that are doing your kind of consulting asking for in your particular town. And it's very inexpensive to join the Chamber of Commerce. Usually it's like, depending on the town you're in, very small amount of money. They have constant get-togethers. It's a great networking place. And that's where you're going to ask, what do people that do what I do get paid? And what is the range? And that's your starting point. You've got to find like-minded people. You've got to find a community where you can begin to ask questions.
Cool. Thank you. Julia in Arizona wants to know, please provide advice to an emerging writer to have her screenplay read and considered. I mean, people are interested in your whole career trajectory here, everything you've done. Well, you're getting questions about.
I'm going to help. I think there is a new app. In fact, right now on my website, becomingselfmade.com, we have these self-made stories of women, and you're very lucky because right now there is a self-made story of a young woman named Denise Hewitt, who is a tech startup millennial who just started a company called, an app called Scripted, where anyone can place for free their script and people in Hollywood will read your script. So you lucked out because I just happen to know that, and that's a great thing. Besides that, though, if you're somebody who wants to be, wants people to read your work, you have to do what I did when I was a little writer at 17 magazine, and what many people are doing today by blogging, you have to be published. So that means you have to, write for websites for free. You have to blog. You have to just get little things written as much as possible. You never know who's going to read something and say, wow, you're a good writer. I want to do something with your work. But this app, Scripted, and this incredible platform is where I would send you. Scripted, spelled SCRIPTD, and go on becomingselfmade.com and listen to the story of Denise Hewitt, who is a self-made story.
Well, I can't wait to check in on that because I have a grandson who's in that same position and trying to figure out how to get his scripts read and noticed. So thank you for that. This is for men as well as women. It's all good advice for everyone. Oh, we have 2 more questions from California. And then I'm afraid we're getting close to the end. So Brenda in California says, what was one of your biggest challenges during the first few years of starting your current business?
I think the challenge the first 2 years is that you freak out. That first of all, that I made my own fatal mistake, which is I went from having a job to starting a business. I don't recommend that. You do both things simultaneously until the new business makes enough money that you can leave your job. But I didn't do that. So I spent a lot of time panicking. And most women, actually, historically, most women quit their startup business before 2 years.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
So, again, I would recommend that you parallel track. In the book I say, life is about your mission and your money. Meaning, you have to, working at anything is humble work, and it's important to make money all the time. And then you cultivate and you incubate your passion and what you really want to do. And until you have either 2 years of salary saved or until your new business is profitable, you don't switch. You have to have the discipline and the sacrifice that it takes to wait.
Discipline and sacrifice are 2 words that I noticed a lot in your book.
Yes.
Those seem to be some of your favorite words, well, especially sacrifice.
Is my favorite word, because I think people today think, like yesterday a friend of mine said to me, well, are you happy? And I go, I think to think that you're going to be happy all the time, or to feel that something is wrong because you're not happy, is really immature. Mm-hmm. Because happiness is moments. You're happy in moments, and then tomorrow you wake up and you're human and the car doesn't start. And so in that moment you're not happy. That doesn't mean you're not happy. That means that things go wrong and you have bad moments. Mm-hmm. Happy is a journey. It's not a destination. And so I think sacrifice, and this is going to sound weird, but sacrificing and not being happy sometimes makes you happy. Oh. Because to know that that when you achieve something, what it took for you to do it, that you really moved to, I moved to a 4th floor walk up in the East Village in order to start a business, that I didn't buy clothes for 3 years, mm-hmm. that, all those things are my badge of honor that I maybe don't talk about every day of my life, but whenever I get anything inside of me, I don't need trophies. The trophies are inside of me, because that sacrifice made me stronger and made me proud that I accomplished those things.
That actually leads me to ask you, this is the last question, and this one is I'm just going to ask you to relate to people a beautiful story that you tell at the end of your book about climbing a pyramid in Mexico.
Thank you for saying.
I think it's a very good example of what you were just saying, and it will put a wrapper on this entire conversation so beautifully.
Well, what I talked about, first of all, I use the metaphor a lot of climbing a mountain, because I think that this journey of becoming a self-made woman, of becoming a woman that's whole, that feels good about herself, that's empowered, that's truly empowered, is like climbing a very difficult mountain. And sometimes you want to slide down the mountain and you want to get off. And sometimes you feel like you're not going to be able to make it, and you cry a lot and you fail a lot and you have to get up. And I was saying that I was climbing this pyramid in Mexico. And you get to this part of the pyramid, and I'm kind of afraid of heights. So I used to be. I even combated that.
Mm-hmm.
Almost when you get to the top, you're in this like ledge that's very windy. And you really feel like you're going to fall off. It's kind of you really are not going to fall off, apparently, but it really feels like you are. And you really want to go down. And you say, I can't do it, I can't do it, I can't do it. And I kept going. And I got to the top of the pyramid. And when you get to the top of the pyramid, it's sunny and the view is beautiful. And you realize that this whole climbing the pyramid is a metaphor. That every time you think you can't make it, what's stopping you is not your pain, it's not your circumstances, it's not what happened to you, it's not the economy, it's not a tsunami, it's you. It's you. And that the only thing that's keeping you from greatness is you. And it's your mindset. It's your point of view. And that when you get there, you realize, you know, all along I could do this. And also that you're never going to stop climbing. And that's how I end the book. I say, you know, I will never stop climbing. There's always another mountain to climb. You know, writing this book, you know, I felt like, well, I have my act together. I've run a lot of businesses. Writing a book was very difficult. It was very painful. It was very a skill set that I wasn't comfortable with. I've had to be very naked, telling all these stories about my life. It made me very insecure. So just when you think you've climbed one mountain and you think that you've conquered it, there's a new mountain to climb. And let's get going. Let's go. Adelante.
Adelante. Adelante. So, Nely, as we wrap up, would you just tell people again where they can find you, what the name of your book is, if they'd like to find out more? What would you like them to know so they can get what they more Nely?
So the book is called Self-Made, Becoming Empowered, Self-Reliant, and Rich in Every Way.